The following is my ponderings from my earlier morning meditation, and it's reflection upon pawns and the Ponzi scheme that we are participating in, how we pledge our allegiance, and how we are literally indentured servants.
I was thinking about how few are infiltrating and influencing, right? Like we're talking about this stuff. And the false idolatry and the worshiping of these few people because they admire and aspire. It's actually jealousy and envy that rule that. And, we could actually go in, and now I'm saying this out loud, we could even go as far as to look at the 7 deadly sins, right? And a person wants to say they're righteous and they want to, these are typically your unhealed traumas that people are, this is addiction. That the 7 deadly sins are what are most appealing to those who are in trauma response, have unhealed traumas and have suppressed their expression, their feelings, their wounds. And so who is most easily manipulated and ruled over and controlled is the trauma victim, right? And then they victimize themselves because they don't see how they choose those 7 deadly sins. Like, that's the most influential thing ever. And and that all ties into the Roman Empire. Like, all of that is the Roman Empire right there. That's just a great example of sloth and greed and all this envy and coveting neighbors' wives and all this stuff really goes back to this idea that we're not worthy because of these different experiences and the way that we've been raised and programmed and conditioned into this cult. Literally a cult, that's for damn sure. And I was just reflecting upon that in my morning meditation, and I thought to myself, we know it's a very small minority that are running the show, that they've convinced. That's the part that just blows my mind. Has convinced every single person that works in these different types of jobs that supports them, that it's supposed to be us as the governing body, not being told to do by this governing over the mind type situation. That, let's just use a theoretical number, that there are 20 people that are true entities, whatever they are, behind the scenes. And they've created these layers and these levels, these tiers. It's a Ponzi scam, right? We're pawns in a Ponzi scheme. That was a really good one in my video the other day. That I just completely didn't even recognize the pawn is part of the Ponzi scheme. That those two go hand in hand. I'm like going, damn, these words are getting good. I'm actually getting it, right? So because we're being used as pawns in the Ponzi scheme, and we know that network marketing, all that stuff, MLMs, are top tier down. There's one, and then it grows out each tier. And so the person, of course, who sits fat and happy is always at the top. And so if we were to theoretically consider that, which is funny that represents the pyramids. Hello, you people. As above, so below, as within, so without. And so if you think about the pyramids, the power is always at the bottom. And that's how it got inverted. Is because people got completely put under a spell. I just done so very well, right? So, okay, that wasn't all of what was in my reflection. That was just now, in addition to the pawns and the Ponzi scheme and stuff like that. But again, pawns, Ponzi scheme, pyramids, inverse power. Actually, it's force, because power versus force, we all have the power. Force is the manipulation to give the appearance of having power. And it's this convincing us, the influencing of our own program, the influencing and manipulation. And yeah, Are they really lying to us? No. Most of the times people want to say they're lying to us. No, you're lying to yourself because they're telling us. They're always telling us and showing us. They've not lied. They're doing it with a smile. They're telling you everything you need to know. And what people don't realize is because they're so invested, literally indentured slaves to the system that they are a part of. They don't see themselves as slaves because they feel like they're doing something because they're getting money in exchange, which is, again, the debt instrument, which is an IOU, which means it's not worth a shit, which is basically how it translates to us as humans. You're accepting a debt instrument, an IOU, that is not of value for your value. So there's an inequality, and that's why it's insecurity, because it isn't our true securities. That the securities that are due us are resources, not IOUs and debt instruments. So you think, like, let's look at just the tier of just the system that we're in, and how so many people are just completely baffled at how do they get people to be so loyal? Well, it's exchange, it's promises, right? It's the shiny objects. We, sell your soul, basically. If you give us this, we'll give you that in return. This is, again, the Roman Empire. We will give you all the things to make you fat, happy, and drunk. And you know what? We'll actually turn around and put restrictions around things that we know that you want. Alcohol, drugs. So that you'll pursue those same things. And it's like a negotiating tool that we can, dangle over your head if we want to control you or demean you, make you feel less than your value and your worth, because now you've got something to be self-righteous about. Oh, I'm a good person because I don't do those things. There's so much psychology in all of this. It's fucking crazy. But if we look at these supposedly we have elected officials. We're just going to say supposedly because we know they're selected. We didn't choose that. And all they've done is had us go through the ritual of voting is essentially our pledge of allegiance. There we go, this fucked up shit. Of loyalty to a system that is disloyal to us. And people are just so indoctrinated into the routine of it all. They don't recognize there was a shift or there was a change or that they were duped over by the system. And so in saying this, I'm just pondering and postulating the idea that at a certain point, anybody who is in a false idol state, they are idolizing, admiring, aspiring to be a celebrity, a politician, a sports figure, a musician, a whatever it is, a Nobel Peace Prize winner, a royal person. Everybody seeks to feel important, but unfortunately they seek it through the wrong means. And when I say seek it through the wrong means, that's not in alignment with their heart and soul. They're seeing what's on the outside. They don't see what's on in the inside. And they don't know the behind the scenes of the selling out of their soul. So many people just assume because we're told, if you work hard, you will get to this level. It's all a show. It's all a story. And it's a lie. To get people to want to be a part of their club. To be loyal to their club, but you're never in their club. So you admire and aspire to these people. And one day you wake up, because this is what's happening in the world. One day you wake up and you go, these motherfuckers have been lying to me. They've actually been using me. They've been taking advantage of me. That I've given all my loyalty to them and I have nothing to show. And that when I needed them most, they didn't show up for me when I showed up for them. And that can be on any level. You can just look at the fact that people voluntarily pay taxes. When you get to a certain point where you're like, listen, I give and give and give. I am paying you my blood, sweat, and tears voluntarily, not realizing I don't need to, because eventually somebody will wake up to the fact that that is actually the Ponzi scheme right there to keep you, always fighting, surviving to get by. You shouldn't be paying for the simple necessities of life. In fact, your true right is the pursuit of life, liberty, happiness, freedom of movement. All the simple things are God-given. They're not man-made. They're not man proclaimed, or here's your privilege. Fuck that shit. It's bullshit. So you've been paying all this time voluntarily, not realizing that it wasn't even it wasn't, what's the word? It wasn't your responsibility. And that's the thing, is everything we've taken on and shouldered as our responsibility wasn't even ours to take on. And that's everything from family legacies, childhood traumas, when you were young and you felt like you had to take care of people when it really wasn't your job, but somehow you just decided that's what you did. And it was a survival tactic, and it was a coping mechanism to get your needs met. And that's what everybody is doing, is they're still in trauma response from something in their past. And the system is set up to create the trauma response, to numb you out to your true essence, your true beingness. That the moment you're born of original sin, and you have to prove yourself. It's the whole cycle. And it started with these man-made religions. It's all control. And then, governments are basically religions. They're another form of religion, sciences, all this stuff. And they just change the names, but it's the same characters. It's the same story. It's the same narrative. Nothing's changed. If we don't learn from history, we are damned to repeat it. And look at where we're at. It's exactly where we're at. Repeating the same damn thing over and over again. And yes, I believe each and every one of us has had a role to play in this. Our ignorance, our cognitive dissonance, our complicit compliance, It's the idea that we let it get this far. And we've done it again and again over the past in history. So when you look at the situation where it's at, and you've got people who pledge their loyalty, pledge allegiance, which is what they do here in the United States. It's not a government, it's a fucking corporation. We know this. Most of us know this. And that most people are still under the spell and don't know how to get out of it, because that would mean they'd have to take personal responsibility and accountability. And because they've been coddled for so long by a spoiled government, a governing body, proclaiming power when it's using force through every which means, deliberately demoralizing, dehumanizing, destroying our entire system, country, pitting us against one another. But these people who work on these different tiers don't even see it. But what if they woke up to the fact that they're indentured servants and they've actually chosen to be? I mean, because the first thing that happens as I was reflecting upon some things in my own life is that you get angry. You get really fucking angry. Like, are you kidding me? Why didn't I see that? You get angry at yourself. First, you're angry at them because you feel like they did it. But then you recognize it's you. You chose. You dismissed your instincts. You dismissed the senses. You dismissed what didn't feel right for what you wanted to believe to be right. And you fantasized, and then you projected the fantasy upon a situation which it wasn't. Instead of seeing things as you want them, you have to see them as they are. And that's what most people are doing. They're looking at, and they're turning a blind eye, or they put the blinders on, and they don't want to see the truth. They want to believe in their fantasies, and those aren't real. And that's why we're where we're at right now. Oh, they wouldn't do that. It's between food. Oh, well, they wouldn't sell it if it wasn't good. Right? They wouldn't do that to us. We want to believe the best in people because we're projecting that we want people to believe the best in us. That's how that works. It's like, that's why we're where we are today. And so you've got these, so this is where I was going with this. Imagine you have these governing people, and they have protective services. You and I don't, because even our police forces are pledging to the state corporation or to the city corporation, or if they're shares, they're all pledging their loyalty to the system, not us, to those corporations, not us. And the irony is they are us. The people in those positions that are the dead, like we talk about the Admiralty Law, the Maritime Admiralty Law, we talk about how we are fictional characters on a piece of paper, not the human, but that's the system. And so people who take on these jobs that are indentured, indebted, pledging allegiance to these systems. I was in the military, great example. You're expendable. You're just a number. You're just a serial number. The Wizard of Oz was telling us all about this. The Tin Man, your TIN, your Social Security number. All you need to know is to watch that movie with different eyes, to see the real eyes, to realize, to recognize, and have a revelation. That's what Revelations is about. Not the religious one written in a Bible. Though, if you really want to talk about the fact that they have to reveal everything and they tell us everything in the open and the truth is right there in front of your face, the Bible is, like we talk about, is just parables, stories, allegories, but there's truths in them. And again, I go back to you, in order to know the whole truth, you need to see. You need to be able to discern both sides of a story. So when we have all of these books, because I talked about the book burning too, right? There were 2 book burnings. One book burning was removing our registry books because they had that system in place long ago too. That the books are how they controlled and tracked us. It's track and tracing via books, registries. That's what they used to do. And then they created this more devised, unified system of, Social Security numbers. And so therefore you need to protect that number because that's an important number. Don't give that out. Don't use that for purposes. Oh, now we want you to use it. It's basically the same thing they do in the prison system. You've been tracked and traced all your life. Even our ancestors, it goes back further than we realize. The other book burning was when they rose up against us. So we rose up against them to burn the registrations, to burn them tracking and tracing us. Whereas they burned the books of our real true history because they didn't want it to be passed on. So the real burning of books was to eliminate the truth. And as I was watching and listening to a couple guys talking about this particular book, that I had sent, let's see if I can remember the names of this. Very fascinating. I started watching it the other day. There's 2 parts of it. It's called Conceived in Liberty. And in that, they were talking about how it wasn't that the better system won. It was that the ones with the most resources won. And it didn't mean the good guys won. In fact, a lot of history doesn't point out where the bad guys are the ones who won. And we're still, we're living in this dystopia. That some of the people that were put up on a pedestal were really not the good guys. It's like they were talking about, you think about movies where at the very end of the movie, the guy you thought was the good guy turns around and he was the bad guy. What was that one movie with the actor who had a particular name and he was telling a story and it turned out it was him. It was freaking hilarious. Unusual Suspects, I think, is the name of the movie. Great movie. So, again, I'm going to go back to the indentured servitude because what people don't realize is they've all been used. Each and every one of us. Again, I go back to, we're pawns in a Ponzi scheme. They've got us doing their dirty work because, as we said, the hidden hand doesn't want to get its hand dirty. So what do you do about that? How strong, how courageous is the human to really recognize I want more out of this life and that I'm willing to take a gamble and take a risk to stand up for it? Because Most people are comfortable in their misery, and misery loves company. So where people police each other is out of resentment, not out of the, taking care of one another. Again, we're going to go back to the 7 deadly sins. Nobody's being their brother's keeper. They're actually doing the opposite. So what if one day people started coming together and saying, there's truth in knowing that if everybody stopped working for a day, everybody, not even the, what do they used to call us, the people that are essential, mission essential is what they used to call us in the military. I was always in jobs of mission essential, which meant I worked more. I didn't work 9 to 5. I didn't have an 8-hour day, a 5-day week. I always had like 10, 12-hour days. It wasn't shift works too. 6 days on, 2 days off, a week of days, a week of mids, a week of swings. Talk about fuck up your system. But if people, every single person, even the mission essential, said, you know what? I'm not working. Wow, wouldn't the house of cards fail? What if we turned off all of their resources, their electric, their water? People who support those situations and systems would have to actually comply with us, would actually have to recognize. You see how powerful you are? You have the power to turn their shit off. And here everybody else is worried about them turning us off. People are afraid of them turning us off, but they haven't seen that the only way it happens is if we do it to ourselves. That a small minority are just basically pointing a finger, telling you what to do, and you're complying. People are complying. Well, it's my job, I wouldn't get paid. Because they're relying on a system to pay it, a debt, a worthless IOU that has no value, and telling you have no value. So the indentured servitude of money is essentially saying, here, you think this is worth something. It's a debt instrument. But believe it or not, it's worthless. And for your valuable time, that's what you're getting, is nothing. You're getting debt. You're trading your blood, sweat, and tears for a worthless piece of paper or digital that has absolutely no value unless you exchange it to someone else that you give that debt to. And that is the Ponzi scheme they've got us playing. That we don't need money to run the show. We don't really need money to keep the electric going, to keep the water running. We don't need money. We just need each other to work collaboratively. It is a collective collaboration to actually come together in common. We are all desiring the same things. To live our lives in peace. Like, leave me the fuck alone. Let me do my thing. I let you do your thing. As long as you're not harming anyone, as long as you're not being deceptive and you are living from your heart and soul, that's all that should matter. That is God's given rights to us. That we have again, it's the pursuit of life, liberty, and and happiness. Like, that is our God-given right, not humans. And all it would take is a few humans to say, fuck you, motherfuckers. You're the traitors. And hold them accountable. We don't need money to do any of this stuff, but we've agreed upon it. We don't give unless we get. That's part of the 7 deadly sins. There's no heart behind giving and getting, because that's a different system, but there's the other half of that system. Again, 2 sides of the story. It's a sin. It's a sin that we give and that we're not valued for our giving. But it's ironic. So many people are more willing and more trusting of strangers than they are of their friends, their families, their neighbors. That's the false idolatry. People who worship and idolize these governing entities, these celebrities, these musicians, Nobel Peace Prize people, doctors who are doc tenders, I mean, they're drug pushers. They practice medicine and they perform surgeries. People forget to get second opinions. Science. You know what? You don't need science to figure things out. You've got everything you need to know within you. I think modern medicine is fabulous. But we shouldn't even need it if we weren't being poisoned deliberately. It's deliberate deception. It's unfortunate, and what it would really truly take is just a few people. It wouldn't take much. Because you got to hit them where it hurts instead of thinking they have control over you. I can't stress enough the most simple, foundational aspect of this life is access to these resources. And they withhold and try to keep them for themselves. Money's not even the resource. That's just the distraction. Because like I said, it's a debt instrument. They know plain well. They know really well. They want to scoop up all the land and make it so that we don't have anything. So they can dangle the carrot and be reliant and dependent upon the most toxic, codependent relationship we've ever been in our entire time of humanity is with a system that is a parasite. This is the Hydra. It's the most parasitic. It's feeding off of our energy because we agreed to it. And we have to step back and see it for what it is. And all the lies that we have told ourselves. See, it's not the lies they tell us, it's the lies we've told ourselves. Because again, everything is right there in front of our faces. There are no secrets. It doesn't take much to dig deep to find out all the answers you seek. It's just the willingness to see it, to hear it, to trust yourself. Because the only person that matters that you trust is yourself. And if you don't know thyself 100%, if you only have a half-truth of yourself, of your being, if you're suppressing the shadow, that's your driver. That's your saboteur. Nobody's doing anything to you. It's what you've allowed. And they will show up to you to test you. Everything is a test. Whew, what a story this life is. And the biggest test, it's a spiritual war. It's a mental test. Because it's just choices. We can choose to go along to get along and continue down this dystopian road, or we can also choose to walk away and do our own thing. It takes a lot of courage, and it's a big choice. And I'd be curious how many people would be willing to come together to really address our power as a whole, not as divided. Because together we stand, divided we fall. And they've been able to keep us divided for centuries because they created class and caste systems. Again, the pawns in the Ponzi scheme. It's tiers, it's hierarchies. There are no hierarchies. They are the ones who started trying to convince you how to be, what to be, who you are, limits and labels and bullshit too. You know? It's the biggest deception ever, but we are the ones who are not willing to see through it sometimes. So, whew, this was a deep one for sure. Something to really reflect upon.